Yeah. Happy Sunday, man. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. I love that intro. I'm so glad I found the thing.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. So yeah, John, I gotta put it out there, man. Today, as the thumbnail mentions, today is the 1 year anniversary from when I retired from the Marine Corps. Having joined the Marine Corps on November 17th, 2003, retired last year in 2023, and took a few months of terminal leave after that. But technically, November 17th, 2023 was my 20-year mark, and I did a little bit more than that. However, 20 years is the date. So, yeah, anniversary today. It's like it feels great, man, just looking back at how much things have progressed, how much the oh, thank you.
Happy
So,
anniversary, sir.
thank you. At ease, at ease. Uh, No, it's been great to see how much things have progressed, not only with this channel and not only with this podcast, but in life. How when you first get out, you you're so excited, then you go through like a kind of transition period where like, damn, did I make the right decision? And then you move on to like actually finding your footing and networking and talking to folks with who are like minded and then you start to embrace civilian life after that, right? You become a fully an official civilian after
Right.
that. So it's I feel like I'm there, not yet so much, but I'm there because I still miss it a little bit, but slowly but surely we're opening new doors, things are happening, civilian life is kind of, I'm embracing that a little bit more. So feels good to look back after a year and see how much things have progressed.
Yeah, it's I was gonna actually ask you because I know it's been about I got 21, where are we at 24? So it's been
Mhm.
basically 3 years and some change. November was my official retirement date in
Yeah.
2021. So it's also a special month. I had joined in March of 96.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother day. But um, it, I'm on that way out, right? Spending so much time out of uniform and out of a job, basically not working. I chose not to work. I was actively looking for work, but I didn't find what I was looking for, so I chose not to work.
Yeah.
Now I'm back in the service, working for the government once again, and it kind of feels
Mhm.
strange in a way. Plus, I'm on a Navy base, so that's completely foreign to me. Like, I don't understand how the Navy works. But the
Dude,
thing
it's
I do
tough, man.
like,
It
I
is.
love I love the fact that you can walk across the grass and there's no sergeant majors jumping out of the trees like screaming at you with their knife hands. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, man.
Um, I tempt fate every day when I walk across the grass. We'll put it that way.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
start to,
it's
like, shiver and shudder a little bit as you're, like,
yeah,
your
like
foot
looking
goes on the
around.
grass, you're looking around, making sure nobody's looking.
So yeah, it's strange and it's weird and it feels good that I'm not in uniform. It feels good that I'm not sitting in an office at a capacity where I have to like put on this dog and pony show and all this stuff. Like I literally just go in and do my thing and then go home. Um, but yeah, I'm wondering how you feel about it because you went from the military straight into, well, not straight into, but almost directly into a contractor position, back in an office, back in the
Yeah.
swing of things. Um,
So I'll tell you, it's, I felt like I needed some continuity, right? I I always had a structure, right? As in the military, you always have structure. There's always a battle rhythm. There's always something going on. So I felt like, um, I was afraid of the unknown, basically. It's like I made a video talking about it. It feels like you're like thrown into this ocean in a boat with no paddle, right? And you need to figure out how to navigate your way back to land. And as I was on terminal leave, it was great. Like I got a chance to pick up my kids from school. I could stay home all day. I was, just working on my own projects that I wanted to, and that lasted for about 2.5 months. Um, but as that started nearing the end, I had that like, oh shit moment, right? It
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, well, I'm kind of nearing the edge of this cliff here, and time is running out. I'm no longer going to be eligible for one TRICARE, for a stable paycheck that I've had for the last 20 years. I'm no longer going to have that, and it was scary. It was, and I was not ready to, though I've always had entrepreneurship, abilities and always wanted to pursue that. I don't think I was ready to just go all in on that yet. So I started to apply to jobs, and then through my network, I was able to secure that DoD position, and that kind of was a sigh of relief. Like, okay, I have something coming up, even though it's a contract position, and the contracts go for maybe a year at a time or something.
Mhm.
It was a sigh of relief. It really was, because I was like, okay, well, I know how I'm going to feed my family tomorrow if I need to. Okay, I know how I'm going to keep that roof over our heads. And I mean, just being a veteran versus being a full-on retiree is a little bit different, because retirees do have that, extra, that pension, and then on top of that, if you do apply for VA disability, you have that in your back pocket as well. So it is a little bit different. The mortgage will always be paid as long as I'm alive, right? So
Right.
there's no worries with that. However, in order to secure our future, I felt like I needed to get into something, because I just didn't. I needed to do something. I needed to have a purpose for my day. Um, it's kind of like, John, like you've been on leave before, I'm sure. You've been on maybe like a week, 2 weeks of leave, and sometimes you just feel like you're itching to get back to work, because you're like, okay, now I'm done with leave, I'm done with vacation. Let's get back into the routine of things and go back home and whatever, go back to work, see how everything's running. I was always that in that mindset, and after 2 weeks of terminal leave, I was getting bored of it, to be honest. I needed something, and I was looking for anything, and that's when I went out and started doing volunteer work with these art organizations, and started doing like the the art instruction, over at the park here downtown, and that kind of gave me a purpose, but it wasn't an ongoing thing, right? It was like whenever they need you, it's probably like once a month, maybe like that.
Yep.
So I needed that stability. And yeah, it was scary at first, man. And then I was glad I found that's contractor job. And now that the contract is nearing the end here in 2025, it's kind of like, okay, well, I've got my footing now. I've made some solid connections. I've networked, and I continue to do so. What is going to come next? What's going to come next? I mean, like, the world is my oyster now, and I can move about the world however I'd like. Provided that my wife continues in her career, because that was my promise to her, was to, follow her around now. Now that, for the last 2 decades, she followed me around from duty station and duty station. So it was, yeah, that's the plan now. I'm just curious to see what's going to come, because now it's like I've got my hands in so many projects and stuff, and I'm like, okay, let's see which one we want to go for first. Um, but yeah, now I'm confident, like having that footing in the civilian world. Now I'm confident that, I don't, I'm not going to feel overwhelmed like I'm drowning, because, I don't have something set up. Something will happen. I've always had that ambition in the back of my mind, so something will happen.
Do you ever sit down and wonder how to balance like what's not enough and what's too much when it comes to the ambition part and trying to figure out how to fill the buckets and stuff like that? Like what's kind of your barometer for that if you start to feel a little bit overwhelmed in the other direction, like too much stuff?
Oh, dude, that happens all the time. And like, I go full force into one project, and I'm like, okay, well, this has taken over my life. Time to dial it back a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like that many times, when I started doing, little entrepreneur businesses here and there, and that consumed my life to the point where I had put like my family almost on, the back burner. Even with like Marine Corps missions and things like that, like that consumed my life. It's just a matter of taking a step back. It's just a matter of, realigning your priorities, just kind of looking at what really matters. Is this mission in the military is never going to end. If I take leave, the mission continues. If I leave the service, the mission continues. So that I can put that on the back burner a little bit, right? It's my mission, but my family is also my mission as well. Um, but as far as all the other projects, I mean, I just have to find out which ones are probably going to work out the best, which ones have the most probability of working out the best, and pursue those things. I'm not running for mayor or anything like that. I mean, that was in the back of my mind actually when I was like, there's a mayor election here going on. I'm like, huh, what if I throw my hat in the ring on, to become mayor? And my wife looks at me and she's like, dude, you are doing too much. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I want to try it out because you can, at this, now you can. Like, I can, the people that I've met and the people that I've talked to, I've never thought that I would talk to them ever. Like, not that they're way above my level, but these are accomplished folks. And I'm like, damn, like even in uniform, I never really had a chance to talk to anybody like that.
No.
Um, and it's literally a matter of, hey, just moving forward with confidence and just acting as if you belong there. And, now I enter rooms and I'm like, hey, look, my name's Vic. Here's what I do. And, great to meet you. And they're like, hey, yeah, give me a call. Let's network, whatever. Let's link up. I'm like, good to go. So it's been a whirlwind, man, of events. But yeah, when it comes to like what I want to do, I don't know yet. I got to put things in priority. I got a whiteboard sitting right next to me, and it's all over. I got to clean it up, man. It's all over the place right now. But it's where I throw ideas, and I wish I could turn the camera here. Things like nailed in there or screwed in there. But yeah, I just throw ideas on there, whatever sticks, and I'm like, okay, maybe I want to pursue that thing, and then yeah, I mean, my mind is always working, man. It's always
No.
working. Yeah, I'm sure yours is too, man. Given the projects you come up with too.
It is. I try to balance it out really, like what you said, the very
Mhm.
first thing you said, trying to balance out between family and friends and the work environment. And after working so many years in the military and then taking that nice long break, that was the thing that kind of really I think really set me up mentally. I mean, of course, I still got some mental issues that probably need to be taken care of,
Right.
but with mental health and things like that, and dealing with some of those ticks and like the PTSD kind of stuff that just is there just by default because of the fact that spending so much time in the military, deploying, doing all these weird things. After the fact, you start to think about it, and all these weird
Yeah,
thoughts come up. But
it comes up.
really, the thing that really I think kind of mentally prepared me for now is doing all that like meditation and doing reading and like knowing when to cut myself off from the work, and separate myself. And the thing that's one of the things I really notice it's really profound in what I'm doing right now with my job is like from whatever 8 in the morning till 5 p.m. or whatever the hours are for the work. It's work time and it's go
Mhm.
time. And even in then, it's like how much like whose hair is actually on fire, right? What fires are we trying to put out here?
Yep.
But then at the end of the day, it's like cut it off, put the phone down, log out of the laptop, go home, and try not to spend too much time thinking about it. Even though there's pending stuff still waiting for like TDYs and blah blah blah.
Yep.
I just try to put it out of my mind, even like especially this weekend, which was my anniversary with my wife, and yours was
Well,
just
congratulations.
a few days before that, right? So, um, thank you. Yeah, just even that was like letting the job know, like, hey, I'm not going to be available at all if you're trying to get a hold of me, if there's something pending that needs to be taken care of, and I'll get back to it on Monday when I get back to the office. Being able to like step back and say that kind of thing to somebody after spending
Mhm.
so many years like working 15, 20 hour days
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes, day and night, and constantly checking the phone and the emails and the
Mhm.
messages. And now I can just do it at my pace. But I think really setting myself up mentally for that beforehand and getting myself in the habit of like slowing things down. Really, I have the ambition, but I really put it against a rubric that says, okay, is it going to conflict with this? Is it going to conflict with this? Going to conflict with this? If any of those are a yes, then I definitely say no to it. And it's hard to be able to say no to things because you're like, I need the opportunities. This thing's going to be once in a lifetime. You get the FOMO of all those opportunities, especially now with the stuff that we're doing with the podcast and your own YouTube channel and a lot of the things that we're doing online. It's hard to just say, yeah, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I know what the consequences of saying yes are. So I find myself saying no a lot and yes to the things that really, really give me goosebumps, things that really spark my interest, things that I feel like are really important to me. And everything else is just kind of,
Yeah, you really got to filter that stuff out because there's a ton of stuff that's going to come your way if you wanted to, right? I guess if you manifest that type of thing, right? If you look for opportunities, they're going to come your way.
Yep.
And then you have to learn how to filter out what you really want to do, how to prioritize your time, and you know what you want to dedicate your time to. There's been a ton of projects that I have left like unworked on. I mean, I haven't written down and you know the logbook thing here, but so many projects that I've not worked on only because you know they're going to affect my time with my family now.
Right.
Because my work now is not like my work as it was when I was in uniform. Like I don't take that work home with me. It's when I was in uniform, I'm sure that a lot of folks out there listening and you yourself, John, can attest to this. When you are in uniform, you are, you know, in the Army or at least a Marine. I was a Marine 24/7. So if I needed to be on duty, you know, I had to be on duty for 24 hours, or I had a phone call. I had a cell phone, a government cell phone, and I get calls. You know, like when I was in Japan, I got calls to do SOFA rights advisements. So I'd have to go out and read people their SOFA rights, you know, if they get in trouble off base, you know, with the Japanese folks. So it was always an on-call thing. And I'm like, man, I don't have to do that now. And it feels so good. It's like a weight lifted off your shoulder. It feels so great. But now with all this time in my hands, I have to use it wisely because then I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna mess it up if I don't. But it also gives time for me to, you know, to travel a little bit with the family, to have some breathing time. Because I don't know if I mentioned to you before, I've always felt like constantly on alert for the last 2 decades, in uniform. And it's not until recently, like even up until like a month or two ago, where I kind of let that go. Like if we go somewhere, I'm not constantly on alert. And it's taken so much to, you know, like therapy and all that stuff to kind of let that stuff go. Because you are, you know, vigilant because you know, some of us have deployed and then you've experienced things and you're always like on alert, right? You're always wondering what's around that corner, what's going to happen. My back needs to be to the wall so I can see the exit, that type of thing.
Right.
And it's hard to let that go. But in the last couple of months, I've learned how to just breathe, you know. And I remember it affecting us on vacation. You know, my mind was always on the mission. I could not relax. You know, we were in Mexico at one point. We were hanging out in Tulum, my wife and I. Really nice spot by the Yucatan Peninsula, beautiful waters, beautiful beaches, and I was completely like on alert the whole time to the point where I was like, you know, I can't do this. Like I don't even want to hang out right now because I don't feel right. You know, things don't feel right to me. You know, and obviously that caused some issues, right? But that's the nature of the beast, man. I mean, that's something that we have to work through. So I've made it a priority to myself to kind of work on that, to work through breathing techniques, through meditation, spoken to therapists about it, you know, and gotten some help where I needed, where I saw fit, and it's helped. It really has. Now I feel a little bit more at ease, a little bit more relaxed. Somebody's not going to burst through my door at any given time to take over. You know, I can relax.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Being hyper vigilant, your head's always on a swivel, and you're always looking. I've found. I mean, I'm that way. just by default, I think.
Mhm.
Always hyper vigilant, and it's actually helpful in some situations, in some cases, right? I'll give you an example, right? Um, Say you've got something that you always need, a set of keys, a hairbrush, like whatever it happens to be, and
Right.
you meticulously put it, kind of try to put it in the same spot. But if it doesn't go in the same spot, you're aware that it's in a certain place, right? And so if your wife or your kids ask, like, "Hey, I'm looking for this thing," and by default, I don't know why my brain does it. By default, I just kind of like organize things in my brain and know
Mhm.
pretty much where everything that we regularly use is. So if it's
Right.
not in the spot where it usually is, I usually like, oh yeah, it's in the bathroom, or it's in the second drawer on the right hand side. I don't know why. I don't know why my
Mhm.
brain works this way. So that's I attest that to being hyper vigilant, right? Being fully aware of surroundings, so that if in a worst case scenario, you have to identify who the shooter was, what color jacket they were wearing, were there any tattoos that they like, those kind of things.
Yeah.
My brain is always recording that kind of stuff, but I can't tell you what I
Yeah.
had for dinner a week ago, right? So
Definitely.
it's really weird.
Yeah.
It's strange, but
I'm the same way, man. Trust me.
yeah, I think
I'm the same way. My wife gets pissed at me all the time, and I'm like, look, it's really, it's not that I'm not listening. It's that
right.
my mind is
I'm taking
always
notes.
on something else.
I'm taking
You know.
notes.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Speaking of that, and the kind of getting back to work and getting back to a job, and getting reengaged after retirement or after transitioning out of the military, for those of you, and I know you're pushing, and we talk about this and it comes up, and maybe it's a sore subject at this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the VR&E stuff, if you're
Mhm.
getting ready to do it, if you're actively doing it, even if you've got a job or not have a job, if you're going to be working part-time, and you're trying to finish your school and you're using the VR&E Chapter 31 benefits, take this down as a note, and I'll just like show you my phone so you can get it. But um, so
The
reduced work
reduced work
tolerance.
tolerance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take that down as a note. That's one of those kind of things that you want to write down if you're going to go down that path, ever in the future, or if you're already on that path and you're taking classes and you're doing work. Um, Write that down, and if you need to, go talk to your physician, your doc, whoever, and see if they can give a little statement for that, to be able to allow you to still get compensated for full-time class load, even if you're only taking part-time class load.
And that was again reduced work compensation. Is that what it was?
Reduced work tolerance. So basically, it's
Tolerance.
saying based on whatever VA disability you might have. I hate the word disability. Whatever VA claims that you might have claimed that are connected to service, that maybe affect your work routine or you getting things done during the day, and adding the workload of classes for school that you're trying to finish your degree. That kind of statement or whatever from a doc is one thing you'll need to be able to give to your VR&A rep, to be able to then allow you to get fully compensated for your schooling, even if you have to drop down to a half-time class load or something like that. If it's too stressful, it's too much work, because I mean, usually it's 2 classes per semester, equals a full-time class load, depends on the school and depends on the agreement that they have with the VA. So just keep that in the back of your mind, write it down as a note if you're trying to do that kind of thing. And that'll help alleviate some of that stress on your end of wanting to get the full benefit, but not having the ability or the mental capacity or the nerves to do a full class load and potentially be working at a job and doing other stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I can foresee that actually being very useful.
mm,
Um, yeah, because there's only so much mental capacity I can put towards work, and then after that going straight to school and things like that. It's just, yeah, there's a lot going on, right? A lot going on. And I mean, if they're allowing us to take maybe half-time classes or less than full-time and still get the full compensation, that's key, man. That's an awesome benefit. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, and
Reduced work tolerance.
that's why I kind of asked you about the how do you figure out what's too much and what's too little, and how do you balance that? And that's one of the ways you could potentially balance it if you're trying to do classwork. Classwork is difficult. It's not impossible. It's not super, super hard, but it's difficult. It definitely takes time, takes a little bit of effort if you want to pass the classes, right? So
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
thing to for sure keep in mind.
There's definitely some dedication that needs to be some dedication involved when you want to pass a college class. Unless you're going to a degree mill, then just pay the money and get your degree.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man.
Definitely one way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So let me see here. I want to really quick talk about this Mike Tyson fight.
Oh,
I know we
let's
watched
do
it.
that. Yeah.
I know we watched it. I know we. I watched it at least here, and it was. I feel like I waited 4 hours for a fight that really didn't turn out the way I thought it would turn out. Right? It was underwhelming at best. The fight before it was very, very good. The women's fight,
Mhm.
right? But this one was. I don't. I get it. Mike Tyson's almost 60, right? This guy,
58.
what's his name? Paul is 58. Paul is what, like in his late 20s, something like that. He's obviously, he can move around a little bit better. Tyson can't, he's at one point he was the best ever, the GOAT, if you will. But his he really showed his age. He really showed his age. It was hard for him to move. He had like a brace on one leg, on his left leg or something.
Mm.
And it had me thinking, as I was sitting there watching it, and I had like my kid around me, and just and he's cheering, of course, for Jake Paul because he really doesn't know. He didn't grow up watching Mike Tyson, right? Obviously,
Right.
I
He didn't
I
have Mike
did.
Tyson's punch out.
No, he didn't, right? Like what's his name? Little
Unfortunately.
Mike or whatever,
Yeah.
or little Mac. But yeah, man, I was like thinking, I was like, man, this when it's your time to go, you gotta really do some soul searching and look at that. Like, yeah, well, he did it for a payday, and I'm sure he was paid really well for it, right? Somewhere
Mhm.
upwards of like 20 million or something like that for that fight. But man, it was an exhibition thing, but it made me kind of sad watching it, man. I'm like, this guy who was, like the greatest of all time when I was growing up, who did like awesome things. You wanted to watch him because he was so unpredictable. And now he's taking these random exhibition fights. It's a money thing, is what it is. It's a money
Yeah.
thing. But it made me a little sad watching it after so long. Um, and it made me think, like, is his heart even into it, anymore? Like, that's one thing he knew was boxing.
Yeah.
But is his heart, is it just a payday? Is his heart even into it anymore? Yeah, there you go. According to Forbes, Paul 27 was the highest paid athlete in 2022 when he made an estimated 45 million. Meanwhile, neither Tyson nor fight promoters have disclosed what his payday would be, though some industry experts have put it around 20 million. That's the same thing I read.
Yep.
I mean, would I take a fight for 20 million? Sure. But
I would step in the ring with Mike Tyson for $20 million.
like today's Mike Tyson, yeah.
Right now. Like right now. Without any prior training, I would literally be like, okay, cool. I'll get in the ring with him for $20 million.
Let's do it. Let's do
That's
it.
fine.
I'll even
We got
tie
gloves
my
on. It's
hands
fine.
behind my back. Yeah.
Gotta give him them
Dude, yeah.
kidney punches and just keep on working.
That's it.
Just
But
tenderize
man,
it.
it made me a little sad watching it, man. I'm like, damn it, Mike, why the hell did you have to do that, dude? Like, I want to remember you as like the greatest of all time, not like somebody's grandfather getting in there, being a freaking meatbag
Yeah.
for this dude. It was a little sad to see, right? But also, as my kids cheering for Jake Paul, I'm thinking to myself, like, why? Like he is smart in his marketing, but why do we make silly people famous? Like, why do we make people like who provide really no depth, nothing of worth? Why do we make people like this famous? Um, it's kind of like the overpaid athlete versus the underpaid teacher type thing, right? Who's really providing more to society. Yes, it's an entertainment business. I understand that, and athletes are obviously going to get paid more. I mean, you got Shohei Ohtani who plays for the Dodgers, and he's getting paid 700 million over the course of I don't know how many years. And then you got, my kid's teacher getting paid, 60,000, 70,000, whatever they get paid over the course of 1 year, right? Yeah, it's insane. It's insane what it is, but uh, yeah, I'll keep it at that, man. Mike Tyson, man, you broke my heart, man. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to the Military Retirement Podcast, Mike
Right.
Tyson, you broke my heart.
And if you want to come on and talk about it, come on and just give us a ring. We'll bring you on. It's cool. Yeah, no, I actually walked away with something kind of off kilter from the whole fight. I didn't watch it live. I put it on because the whole reason I went to watch it was my wife showed me like an Instagram video or something of that Mike Tyson getting like knocked out, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second, time out. So I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna watch this fight. I don't give a damn. So I put the fight on and I saw that it was like 5 or something hours or whatever. And I was like, I'm not sitting through all this commentary and all this nonsense. So I just skipped through all the way till the part where I got to the fight. I did catch a couple pieces of a couple of the other, there was some decent fights that they had prior. So like the pre-fights or whatever.
Yeah.
The women's fight was really good. I saw a couple pieces.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, that was the whole reason I wanted to watch the fight. I watched the whole thing, all 8 rounds. Yes, a lot of that professional boxing, at least, I think a lot of other professional sports as well, but professional boxing for sure. And in the last, I don't know, let's call it 10, 15 years, a lot of promotional value fights, like some of the Mayweather fights and stuff like that. Like some of these boxing matches that they put on, even if they're exhibitions, are very well paid. And then so I thought about it and I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Netflix. So boxing, for those who may or may not know, and I'm not a boxing expert by any means. I don't watch all the fights, know all the fighters, know all the stats. It's interesting to me to watch because it's watching 2 grown people, whether it's men or women, basically play chess in real time, physically and mentally. So the stamina it takes to stay in the ring for that many rounds, the stamina it takes to get punched that many times, like that's the interesting part to me. But the more interesting part that I took away from it was, wait a second, traditionally, like up until this particular fight, like all of the boxing, all of the MMA matches, like all that stuff is usually pay-per-view. And if you've been watching TV for more than 10 minutes, you know pay-per-view is like you pay a certain amount of money to be able to get this fight or whatever streamed to your TV so you can watch it, right? Usually.
Right.
Netflix is $20 a month or whatever it happens to be, 15, $20 a month. Let's just call it 20. For $20 a month, and granted, you're paying that for the whole year, and it's $240 a year or whatever it happens to be. I don't remember what the last pay-per-view that I saw.
They're usually like $60 or something, I think.
Something like that, right? So I was looking at it and thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Netflix, and I guess this is kind of like a test bed for future things. And indeed, somewhere in that fight, I saw an advertisement that came up for Netflix streaming now all the NFL. So that's
football game
important.
Start in December.
Yeah, so that's important to me because it shows me like Netflix as a company and their service that they provide is pushing its way into a traditionally closed media space, which is really, really interesting to me because traditionally, like the ABCs, the NBCs, those people control that space, or if it's the pay-per-view through HBO or whatever it happens to be. So Netflix is getting their hat in the ring, so to speak, and getting access to probably the biggest event of the year, I would call it, even though it was less than exciting, but it's the biggest event, the biggest sports boxing event of the year, basically. Because I mean, when's the last time you saw Mike Tyson fight? He got banned from Las Vegas. I guess that's why they did it in Texas. But he had a ban in Las Vegas the last time he fought, I believe. So with all that, and then I was looking at the NFL thing, and that's important for people overseas. Like if you're overseas and you're trying to watch fights, yeah, you can catch them on AFN, but now you can watch them on Netflix. And not only can you watch them on Netflix, I think even with the Mike Tyson fight, like it was streaming live, but then they had it after the fact, so you can go back and watch it, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's super, super interesting. It's a shame that the fight ended the way it did. I was hoping at least one or the other would knock each other down, but nobody did.
No,
maybe they staged it that way.
Like an exhibition. Yeah, it was. I think it was written in the contract like that, man. I mean, they're not going to knock each other out, right? It was. yeah, it was. Yeah, I get what you're saying, right? He was, he's old. He was unfortunately had to work out that way. It was the previous fights were way better than the main event. Um, but yeah, Netflix is moving into this whole arena of the live performances, and granted, the live stream was horrendous, fucking freaking horrendous, man.
Yeah.
Excuse my language, horrendous, dude. It was. I kept getting the 25% buffer on there, and I'm like, what the hell? It's not even in the main fight yet.
Yeah.
What happens when the main fight comes along, right? So, I have another streaming application where I could stream almost any channel in the world or whatever. So I use that instead, and it worked just fine, right? And people are streaming on like YouTube or just TikTok, I heard.
Yeah.
But we watched it just fine on there. Granted, it was a little bit pixelated when we were watching it, right? It was like actually watching Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It was all pixelated 8-bit, but it was yeah. I mean, they're moving into a new arena, and they're going to be streaming the NFL games, I think, starting December.
Yep.
But I think Netflix has a long way to go when it comes to doing the live events. Pay-per-view has it down, HBO has it down. Netflix, I don't know. Maybe they have the money for it. They have the manpower, I think. They just need to release whatever the streaming, whatever makes it, stream better. They just need to do that thing,
Yeah. Well, this is kind of their first foray, or maybe not their very first. It's one of their first forays into live streaming, right? And to me, it's a testament to how many people actually tuned in to watch that fight, because you and I know, right? We stream and we don't have millions and millions of people watching this, but at some point you can oversaturate the stream no matter how good your back end
absolutely, the bandwidth is. Yeah.
So I can just imagine how many people like globally with a Netflix account were watching that fight. And that's really like, not only does it open up the market and kind of move that pay-per-view thing out of the way, it also opens up the market for basically anybody on the planet. If they wanted to watch that fight, you wouldn't have to go through all these crazy, like whatever it is, a DZN or whatever the hell that app is, pay like 60, 70, $100. Like you literally just turn on your VPN, go to America and VPN and stream the fight, right? So that's literally gives the whole entire planet access to the Mike Tyson fight. And that's unprecedented in my mind. It's completely unheard of.
Yeah. And that DZN channel that you mentioned, I didn't know until recently it's pronounced DAZN.
DAZN. Oops.
DAZN. I was like, I said I was sitting there with my kid. I was like, hey, look up DAZN. And he's like, DAZN? It's DAZN, Dad. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. I'm like, he starts calling me Skibbity this in Ohio. I don't know what the hell he's calling me now, but that Gen Alpha type of slang now, it doesn't make any sense to me. Right? I suppose I'm Ohio or something now.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that means.
Middle of Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, that whole fight left a sour taste in my mouth. But luckily enough, last night we had the UFC fight, and I got to see John Jones win that one against Stipe Miocic. So that one was good because I like John Jones, and even the fight, the women's fight before that was on point. I mean, they were just they were going at it. I mean, they ran out of gas really quick, but holy crap, man, it's fun to see people who are paired up so well. And then the one, what's his name, Charles Oliveira, right before the main fight, they were going at it, man. That was fun to watch. Two people who have been training for so long in a certain thing that they're so good at, just going head to head on that, man. I love watching that stuff. I love watching it.
Yeah, I enjoy MMA as well. I really enjoy women's MMA. For some reason, it seems like it's more in tune with what MMA is. Like the men's MMA is just literally like beating each other to death. Women's MMA seems like there's more finesse to it. Like there's a little bit more cat and mouse to it. There's a little bit more action involved.
Yeah.
'Cause you know when you see an MMA fight and you see the two fighters get in the ring and you kind of know
Mhm.
like which one's going to be the one's going to come out on top because the way they stand, the way their demeanor
Yeah.
is. Plus, if you look at their history of fighting
Yeah,
or
their
whatever,
experience and all that.
yeah, women's MMA is a little bit more difficult to judge, and sometimes you get some really interesting upsets. But to me, it's a better show, just overall.
Yeah, and as I was watching that, I saw President-elect Trump was, he had showed up there with his whole entourage, with, Elon Musk, with Vivek Ramaswamy and, Tulsi Gabbard and all these folks, right? Like, all the fighters are shaking their hands, they made this grand entrance, and, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch all those folks, get the ringside seats, and they actually enjoy it and all that stuff, and the fighters like all that, so that's all that's all fun to watch, it's cool when you see something like that, like in somebody who's elected or who's going to be running a country show up to, like, big events like that and
A human,
just be a normal person, right?
yeah.
It's kinda like a normal person thing, right? They're not stuck in the White House or something. They just be amongst the people. So that's kinda fun to watch. And, along with that, I was thinking with, when I saw Elon Musk, of course, he's wearing his Occupy Mars T-shirt like he always does, right? And Vivek Ramaswamy. So they have been, I guess, put in the position of the Department of Government Efficiency, right? And I came across an article. I can't remember the site, and I can't remember where I saw like the actual white paper. But Vivek Ramaswamy wrote a white paper on kind of finding out where the inefficiencies were in the federal government. And one of the things they're going to be looking at is like the actual like uh, folks who work in the federal government. Like if you're not contributing, if we're wasting money on you, then we're going to figure out how to get rid of that, get rid of the waste. Um, Let me see if I can pull it up here. I just have New York Times pulled up because I have a subscription there and I read it
Mhm.
almost every day.
Yep.
Um, Let me see if I can put it up on the screen here.
It's funny when I hear that term, the Department of Efficiency. It
Doge.
immediately it immediately makes me think of the book 1984. Just recently read that
Oh yeah, yeah,
about a
yeah,
month or
yeah.
two ago, and it
That's a good
immediately
one.
like immediately that pops into my mind when I hear this term.
Yeah, yeah. So it says his plan, he freely said, was radical, slashing the federal workforce by 75%, 50% in year one, and eliminating large swaths of federal government. So I think that this would affect more like the higher echelon folks, the higher ranking folks, GS-15s, SESs, maybe. Yeah, I don't think it's going to really affect the lower like GS-10s, 11s, 7s, things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, they're going to be they're looking to slash $2 trillion to save $2 trillion from from what's going on in the Department of Defense or the federal government, which is huge. It's a huge number, and experts are like, yeah, that can't be done unless you make some significant changes, but it's going to affect a lot of things, and it really can't be done. They have their mission, and they said that they want to do it. So, um, God, I wish I could find this white letter that I read from Ramaswamy that where he wrote all this stuff on here. Um, how they're going to be cutting the costs, how they're going to be saving the government money. It's such a good read, man. If I can find it, I'll throw it up on the military retirement group. But holy crap, they're gonna make some waves. They are. If there's a mass, it says if there's a massive effort to dismantle a 2.2 million strong civil service in this country, there will be a massive legal effort to stop it. So that's a lot of people that may potentially in the federal government potentially be looking at losing their jobs, or being removed from their job.
Yep.
So that's something I brought up to my wife because she is a federal employee. I don't think it's going to affect her. I mean, she's a very good worker, but I mean, how is it going to affect somebody who's looking to get into the federal government, in the next year or so? Who knows?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for anybody to ruthlessly cut positions, like Musk is the guy. Like that's literally what he did when he went to
Yeah,
Twitter.
that's what
Right?
he does.
He bought Twitter and he literally like he slashed the workforce of Twitter and fired a bunch of people like right off the top, and pared it down. I mean, that's what he's really, really, really good at. He's really good at making things efficiently work, especially companies and big organizations. That's what he does with SpaceX. That's what he does with Tesla. Um, he's really like he really excels at that. That's what he's really, really good at. And the federal government in and of itself is going to be there's going to be a lot of waves if you're trying to do something on that scale, and if you're trying to do it from a Elon Musk perspective, like you're probably going to try to do that really quickly and really drastically. And I think there's going to be a ton of waves, not to mention the fact that the governmental divide in this country, like there's so much right and left, and it goes way, way, way beyond the borders of regular right and left. And then there's so many gradations of that in between. There's going to be a lot of, but I think Trump is trying to set up his cabinet a little bit differently than he did before. He's kind of learning from his mistakes or his choosing.
Yeah.
So I think he's trying to set up the cabinet in a strategic way. And, he talks crazy sometimes, but again, he's a businessman. He does business, and he doesn't operate the same. Like I don't think he's going to come into office this term, and I don't think it's going to be a mirror image of what he was, a few years ago in his first term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's, he has seen where his, where I guess things were stuck in the system, and he's going to bring people on who will get that stuff done for him. I think so. I mean, at least that's the route I see it. With all the folks that he's putting into place.
Right. And just as a disclaimer for everybody, like we're not pro Republican, pro Democrat. Like we're not trying to divide lines in the sand or anything like that. We're just talking about the president who's going to be the president and how it's going to work and what we think of it. So,
yeah, one thing that stood out to me was the Secretary of Defense pick. That was so you have Lloyd Austin, right? Lloyd Austin was, I think he was Army general, 4-star general. And now, who's the pick now? Hegseth? Yeah, Hegseth. He is a National Guard.
Oh, SecDef. You talking about the
the Secretary of Defense? Yeah,
sorry,
Secretary
I'm preempting myself. Sorry about that.
No. So Lloyd Austin was a 4-star general. Obviously, he has experience in commanding at different echelons. And now we have the pick, who is a National Guard major. I don't know if he's ever held command. I have not read his bio. I'm going to have to educate myself on all that. But National Guard major, I think he's a Bronze Star recipient. So he's seen combat. He's been in combat.
Yep.
No idea if he's held any kind of command leadership or anything like that. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, man, because I don't know that he has the experience for it. Given what I know of somebody who maybe has not held command, maybe there is not education, his experience is a little bit limiting, maybe. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. Maybe he has some good ideas. Maybe he has, good initiatives that he's going to move forward with. But going from a 4-star general who has just decades of experience to a major in the National Guard, I'm not sure. I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, honestly.
Yeah,
and
I think
he's a
for me,
Fox anchor, right? A news anchor or something I saw.
Fox News host and Army veteran,
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth.
So yeah, a lot of things happening. Curious.
Interesting. Yeah, kind of see the pattern. I mean, even with the vice president pick, it's like a veteran in his mid 40s or early 40s. He's trying to pick people, at least from what I see, trying to pick people that are a little bit younger that do have a veteran status, whether they, Pancake Pete, whether they retired from the military or if they're still serving or if they're on reserve duty. The same with the one that I was trying to preempt here for the VA secretary. One that's really top of mind for us, at least. And this guy isn't in his mid 40s, but he is still actively serving as a chaplain in the Air Force Reserves. So I think he's trying to pick a lot of veterans, people who have military service. And it seems like that's kind of the pattern, at least from what I can see.
Speaking of chaplains, man, have you ever seen a chaplain with a combat action ribbon? That's pretty badass.
No,
I came across one in the past, man. I'm like, holy shit, man, that's pretty cool.
I mean, this guy wasn't always a chaplain, right? He was he did some other stuff before he became a chaplain in reserves, but he actually deployed to, I mean, he might have been a chaplain the whole time. I forget the whole story. But he did deploy. He rejoined. I think he was in, then he got out, and then he rejoined around 9/11.
Okay. Yeah, I see it right there. It says 58 years old, joined the Air Force Reserve in 2002 after serving for 2 years as a Navy chaplain in the mid-1990s. He later deployed to Iraq in 2008 as a part of the 94th Air Wing at Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Marietta, Georgia. Okay, so he's got some experience in being a chaplain.
Yeah.
He can speak the good word. I gotcha.
That's right. But he will be our, at least as far as I know, he will be our new VA secretary. So that's the guy that's going to be making decisions for us veterans in some way, shape, or form, hopefully with our best interest in mind, and him as a combat veteran, and probably collecting some kind of VA compensation, I would imagine, hopefully. Serving that long, you know.
Well, you know, I urge everybody out there who may be listening to read about these folks, read their biographies, you know, educate yourselves on who these picks are, just for the sole fact, so you are knowledgeable on what their initiatives are, what their intentions are, what their future plans are. I'm very hesitant to read things on social media now because of the way things have been playing out. With my social media wall has been just inundated with, just swamped with just political stuff, and I've had to like press show less because I don't like to see all that stuff, right? I'm not a big fan of it. You know, I don't really like to talk about politics or anything like that, but I am a fan of educating myself and reading about things before I post about things, right? So a couple times I've had to go on there on my Facebook wall, and like people are just reposting random stuff about random things, and I'm like, dude, have you even looked into this? Because this is not real. Like, there's no source to this. It literally looks like somebody wrote it on a Word document or something, or on their notes app, and put it up there, and then people are just resharing this stuff. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, just blindly reading things and believing things, right? Like, look at the source, man. Go on Google Scholar or something. Look at, you know, let's look at the references here and see if they actually make sense. But you know, that's the biggest thing I can tell folks. Like, read about these elected officials, people who are put in these positions, because it's going to work wonders. And that way, we are all in the know about the same issues, the same politics, the same future initiatives from these folks.
Yeah, like I said, that's the same reason why I watched the Paul and Tyson fight, right? Because I saw this thing on Instagram that said Mike Tyson got knocked. Literally showed a video of him getting knocked down, and I was like, "There's no way."
Was it AI? Was it? Is
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a previous fight or something. I don't know what it was, but I don't think I've ever seen Mike Tyson get knocked out ever.
Not like that. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very easy fight. They were not easy in that, like, they kind of went easy on each other. There was no real like heavy punches or anything like that. A couple stumbles here and there from Tyson. I think it was more so because he's a little older. But what got me in that fight, just going back to the fight real quick, what got me there was, if you would notice how when he was walking out of the tunnel, he tripped, dude, walking out of the tunnel. And then it zooms out. You see the brace on his leg. I'm like, dude, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah. But all that to say, verify, trust, but verify, right?
Trust but verify. Exactly. Because there's a lot of misinformation being spread out there, man. Just biggest thing you can do is educate yourself. Don't just blindly believe about what people are putting out there.
Yeah.
Even if it's your family, dude. I mean, like people repost shit. I'm like, dude, did you even research this?
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about it before we start, throwing things out there. Yeah, it's crazy.
Read your history. Read the histories behind the histories, and get some of the facts and get your facts straight before you start doing all this stuff. I mean, you can repost what you want, but a lot of it's sensationalized news and sensationalized articles and sensationalized, clips of things that people are using to get likes and views and stuff like that. As you may have noticed on our channel, we don't do any of that sensational stuff.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, we're trying to work the algorithm too, but at the same time, we're trying to be as organic as possible. And we don't.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 850 people who actually want to be here and actually want to watch stuff than putting out the latest and greatest trend crap and pulling in thousands and thousands of viewers.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. Do the opposite.
There was a good episode, and I listened to podcasts on the way to work, right? And there's a podcast that I listened to called Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you've heard of that one. And they just had the Google CEO on there, and he was talking about this exact same thing, like sharing things, how AI is working and sharing things without researching it. And he's like, it's your responsibility to confirm that these things are accurate and true before you actually repost it, or else it's just going to be a world of misinformation. If you've not heard that podcast episode yet, it's a really good one. I think it's the last one he came out with the Google CEO, but I was listening to it because AI really interests me and the future of AI and how that's all going to work. And he talks about the Notebook LM and all that and how that works. And the host was like, hold on, Notebook LM, you can have two people that sound like podcasters, like actual people who don't really exist, make it sound like they're like having a conversation about a podcast dependent on whatever topic that you put in there, that you type in there. And the host was like, hold on a second. Like, this is my life. Like now AI is going to be taking over the thing that I do, like that I love doing. So he explains a little bit about it, but it's amazing how fast AI is growing, how much it's growing. And it really is the future. It really is the future. He had mentioned like they asked the question, like, what advice would you give somebody like an 18-year-old who is looking to get into this and get into it at the ground level because AI is the future? And the Google CEO mentioned he would advise the 18-year-old to learn Python, like the what is it, the software, the Python
Programming
language.
software. Yep.
Yeah. You learn Python and then work your way up from there. Because if you don't know AI for the future, you're already behind. You need to start learning that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And my company gave me a subscription to this website called O'Reilly. It's kind of like Coursera. Like they show you there's different courses and certificate courses and things like that. And a lot of them are like business data analytics and AI based. So when I have downtime at work, dude, I'm constantly like just reading about that stuff. I'm way behind myself, but I'm like, this stuff really interests me. Like machine learning, just it is the future. It's gonna take people's jobs away, especially if you don't know how it works and how you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it'll augment some jobs and make jobs
Yeah.
a little bit more efficient.
Well.
Back to the Department of Efficiency. I was also checking out a podcast. So Tim Ferriss, if any of you don't know, Tim Ferriss is like my man crush.
Good one.
I try to emulate him as much as I can, but not emulate, but really just take a lot of cues.
John's got a picture of him in his wallet.
Yeah, and he's on my screensaver on my phone. No, but he's got a ton of guests on all the time on all different sorts of topics. If you want to dig into AI or anything really,
Yeah.
you can check out his podcast. He's got a few really good episodes on there about AI stuff. And recently, he had a guest on who's been on before, a guy that I highly respect, talking about like Python and language learning and navigating the world and finding the truthiness of things.
Yeah.
I feel like Derek Severs is one of those guys who's kind of got that at least figured out a little bit. Super, super interesting dude. He was on the podcast and they were chatting back and forth and talking about different things like that. And he was talking about if you have this built-in kind of prejudice in your mind against a place or a thing or some kind of idea in the world that you maybe like, you don't like. His example was rats. Like he didn't like rats for the longest time because he grew up, spent a lot of time in like Boston and New York and was always taking care of the rat problem. And then 20 years, fast forward 20 years, his son asked him like, "Hey, we should get a pet rat." And he was like, "No, like, I don't want to get a pet rat." And then he
Yeah.
thought about
Why
it. And
would we?
He was like, "Okay, well, maybe let's just look into this." So kind of taking the opposite approach and just giving it a try and giving it some and doing some research on it and finding out the actual facts, not just based on what you have in your mind of what the truth is, even in your
Yeah.
own mind. I'll throw this up on the screen if anybody's interested in it. He's written a few books. One of the keystone books, one book that I recommend on the podcast before is Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. This is his latest book, Useful, Not True. And it's basically kind of a internal case study on things of what's truthful information and what's not truthful information, what's actually useful and maybe it's not true, and then vice versa and the opposite of that. So great read. His books are always really concise. I think this one's like 105, 110 pages. Super interesting books, super interesting guy. And he'll definitely give you a different perspective and give you kind of a primer on how to find the truth, or at least how to research and figure out what you believe is the truth versus what the actual truth actually is. So that's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one, man. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. Oh man, you always got some good ones, man. Always got some good recommendations out there.
I mean, Derek's an interesting dude. I saw him on the podcast a long time ago. That's where I actually started to reach out and I guess I started down that path of this kind of podcasting and all this stuff a long time ago, listening to Tim's podcasts and then researching a bunch of these people that he had on the podcast, like Kevin Kelly, Derek Sivers. There's a bunch of other people. And I've actually like literally reached out to these people directly. I've emailed Derek back and forth a few times. We're not like best friends or anything. But I've talked to a few people from the podcast and actually met a few people from the podcast in person.
Oh, very cool.
Just because I wanted to get to know them and get just some FaceTime with them and see like how they actually are. And luckily, these people are really the same in real life. They don't just have like this on screen persona and then there's somebody else behind the scenes. Derek is one of those people. He puts it out in the podcast. He puts it out on his website. Like if you want to talk to him, you can literally just email him and he will read your email and he will probably write you back if it's an interesting enough thing or if you're asking something or whatever like that. So I enjoy people like that are, have made millions of dollars and created these big companies and stuff like that and still are very down to earth and very humble, very kind people.
Yeah, that is good to meet folks like that. I've met a few myself, and it's almost surprising. Like, man, this guy, a lot of folks like that wouldn't give somebody else the time of day, and these folks are really down to earth. They can really relate.
Yeah,
I got a question for you, John. What is? Give me your top 3 podcasts that you're listening to right now.
So. Besides our own, because I listen to each one of these every time we put one out.
Give me your top 5, maybe. You can include our own, because I listen to mine over and over. I listen to this one over and over.
Yeah, I get off, and just for context, it's 7 something p.m. here. So I get off of here. I'll spend a little time. do some things around the house. And then at the end of the day, I sit down and replay this exact same video, the live stream after it's been recorded, just to look at it, listen to it, take some notes, make sure the audio sounds good and the video's good, but all the interviews as well. So this is probably my number one podcast because of the fact that it's ours and we built it. And I like to go back and see if I can enjoy it as much as a listener or a viewer as I do doing it, performing it. So number one, CEO of a Diary is a really good podcast. I don't watch it as regularly. I haven't really consumed podcasts regularly. I've been listening more to audiobooks, but the ones I do listen to for sure are usually Joe Rogan, the Tim Ferriss podcast, some of the NPR stuff. I really dig into. If I'm getting back into podcasting, I listen to the NPR stuff, and then a lot of TED Talks, which aren't really podcasts, but they're kind of digital media out there and little 20-minute kind of snippets of really interesting topics. So yeah, podcast wise, Gary V, usually it's not necessarily a podcast, but sometimes it's an interview with 1 or 2 or 5 people. I really enjoy those, or even the behind the scenes kind of boardroom meetings that he has with different companies. I like watching those and getting the meat and potatoes, how the sausage is made behind the scenes. He kind of just like puts that all out publicly as much as he can. So that's a few of my favorites is Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk, Jocko Willink. Once in a while, his podcasts, you have to really sit down and concentrate and focus. So I can't necessarily listen to those while I'm driving the car or walking around. I really have to be super hyper focused on those because he says a lot of really interesting, deep stuff.
Yeah, he does. Yep.
That's probably my Mount Rushmore of podcasts.
Good. Yeah. Speaking of Jocko, man, he I've been wanting to go to his gym. His gym is only like just a few miles away from where I live here. He's got an MMA gym, and I think on his second floor he does his podcast there with Echo Charles. At least that's what I've heard. I've not been to his office or anything like that, but he's always around here. He's always doing something around here around SoCal. So I'm curious to maybe pop into his gym one day and just do a workout out there. He runs an MMA gym called Victory MMA.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool. I know exactly where it is because I used to do some personal training or see a personal trainer out there, and it's like an area with a bunch of warehouses around there around San Diego, and I know exactly where it is. I just have not stopped in there at all. Like I'm not big into like jujitsu or anything like that. I used to do it back when I lived in Hawaii, but I mean, I'm sure if I walked into a jujitsu gym now, right, I'd get worked. I'm like a white belt.
Get the Mike Tyson of the jujitsu gym.
That's it, man. That's it. Terrible.
One last one that it just popped into my brain. The Colin and Samir podcasts that they do.
Colin Samir podcast. I've not heard that one.
I regularly listen to that. They have an email newsletter called Publish Press, and or Press Publish. Maybe it's Press Publish, but they do a lot of deep diving into social media, the creator networks, things like that, and a lot of people that are doing YouTube videos and doing TikTok and stuff like that. So I watch them to get more kind of industry updates on what's going on in the media world, traditional media as well, but a lot more of like the podcasts and kind of like the creators, nowadays the creators and people who are doing big stuff out there. So I like to follow that.
Good. I'm surprised you didn't say like a Ryan Holiday podcast, like the Daily Stoic or something.
Every once in a while.
List.
Yeah, every once in a while. He doesn't put out podcasts like on a regular basis like most people do. At least I haven't seen it. And it could be just YouTube not pushing it to me. Ryan Holiday, I'm really picky and choosy about podcasts. So before I used to listen to Tim Ferriss like religiously. Every single time a podcast came out, I sat down and I listened to it every single time, whether I was running or I was driving or whatever. When I was on active duty, I started listening to Tim back in 2013, 2014. It's been a while, but every single time he had a podcast out, I religiously listened to it or watched it. I listened to it at the time because he didn't do any YouTube videos. Ryan is has some interesting guests on once in a while. So I just caught one of Ryan's interviews. I think it was about a month ago. He had Richard Dawkins on. If you don't know who Richard Dawkins is, you should go and Google Richard Dawkins right now. He's got a few books out. One of them called The Selfish Gene. Super, super interesting science guy. But he had Richard Dawkins on, so I watched that. Every once in a while, he'll have somebody on, but I don't think he publishes podcasts regularly, like not on a weekly basis or anything like that. He does them from time to time. So when he does, and he has somebody really interesting on, that's when I check it out. So Ryan Holiday, yeah, for sure. I've been down to Barstrom. What's that little town in Texas right outside of Austin? He's got his bookstore there. He built
the painted porch.
Yep, been there, done
Painted
that.
porch. Yep.
Checked it out. It's a pretty cool place.
Cool.
They got a nice place
That's
to eat right behind it. Really, really good place to eat right behind it.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. That's good, man. Yeah, I as far as for me, man, I listened to, let me see, of course, on the morning drive, it switches between NPR Up First and the Daily just to get like the 5 things that are happening right now,
Mhm.
you know, in the world. Up First, NPR Up First is probably shorter, usually like 10-minute episodes. Let me see, what else do I have? I'm flipping through my stuff right now and seeing
Nice.
what I mostly listen to. Every once in a while, just for entertainment purposes, to see how people are doing their finances, I'll listen to like the Ramsey Show.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I mean, it's probably not one of my top 5, but when I need to hear something to make me feel better about my finances, because a lot of people mess up. They're like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I'm like, how the hell did you get that far into debt? I need to hear the story, man. It's like it catches you. Lately, Joe Rogan, because he's had like some of the president, vice president on there, you know, the elect. So of course, ours, I'll listen to it. Mainly because I want to hear how we sound, you know, and I'm always curious to know how I can better myself, maybe like my voice inflections and this and that. So I'm always listening to that. I'm always listening to our podcast when we update it. I do listen to My First Million. I don't know if you've heard that podcast. It's very entertaining. It's these 2 guys. I can't remember their name, but these 2 guys that just talk back and forth. They have guests on their show, and they interviewed this one kid. He's like 18 years old. How did you get to this? How did you get to $1 million in a year or something like that? It's entertaining. It's being that I have like this entrepreneurial gene. It's fun to listen to it. Yeah, My First Million. So it's yeah, Sean and Sam. So it's definitely a good one. Let me see. Yeah, there you go. Those. I listen to the Think Media podcast. I always listen to that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the guy updates it regularly, so I like listen to that one. Let me see. What else do I listen to? Diary of a CEO. That's always on the rotation.
It's a great one. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah. Every so often I listen to the Rich Roll podcast.
I've seen that one too. Yep.
Yeah, that is a good one. And I think the other one that I listen to, it's between the Huberman Lab, which sometimes goes way over my head. This guy is a scientist. He's like a professor at Stanford, but very into fitness. He has very good guests on.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times, you know, like I'm not a scientist. I don't know what exactly he's talking about, but I do like listening to it because he does have some interesting guests. And I think lastly, gosh, let me see. It's kind of a toss up because I do like listening to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast.
Okay.
And Tim Ferriss. So it's always a rotation. Whoever comes up with the newest podcast episode, I'll kind of click on that one. I do have to clean this out because I do have some podcasts I don't listen to anymore.
Oh.
So yeah, I got to clean them out. I ran a podcast myself many years ago, like in 2019. I still have it on there. I still get like messages about it.
What's the name of it? We got to pull it up now.
Oh, it's terrible, man. It's called Side Hustle Military. Side Hustle Military. it was just me. Again, I have that entrepreneurial spirit and all that. So it's just been me sharing stories, interviewing folks uh, who have had side hustles. Yeah, there you go, side hustle military.
Nice.
So yeah, it hasn't been updated for 4 years or something, but it's out there. It's out there. It'll tell you how I was able to make like 20 grand in a year on the side while living in Japan. That was a fun time. But then I eventually sold that business to a staff sergeant who was recently PCS to Japan. So that was fun. Um, but yeah, I've always had that. I've always wanted to share stories. I've always been something of a storyteller. So
I think episode 13 is like the precursor. This is like you projecting into the future. Episode 13 on April 1st, 2020, from U.S. Marine to YouTube success.
oh
Nice.
oh, this one was that episode was God, what is his name?
Author,
I don't know if he
motorcycle
still has it.
instructor.
Yeah, he ran Moto Jitsu. I don't even know if he still has that. Let me see it. If he does, it's got to be huge now.
Yeah.
Moto Jitsu. He's got 535,000 subscribers right now. I got to talk to that guy. He was a motorcycle instructor over at in Camp Pendleton here in
Mhm.
California, and we talked for a little while. He was a prior Marine drill instructor, and I asked him to, if I can just interview him a little bit and just narrate his story on the show. Really good guy, really good guy. I should probably reach out and just see how he's doing.
I know, right? I find it super, super, super interesting, and really, I'm kind of humbled, blessed, feel really grateful that the weird threads of the universe kind of brought us together. I mean, it seems like you were doing this back then. This was a few years ago, and you were already kind of in that mindset. And for me to run across you, or you to run across me, and then us to link up, do an episode on my podcast, and then at some point, like, hey, you should just come on and we should just co-host this thing and do it together.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how the universe kind of like spun the web and made us connect up and be able to do this together. This is really,
Oh, I
really
know.
interesting
I
to me.
know. Yeah.
Couldn't plan
Well,
something like that.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what, with that, John, I can see the light turning on my camera and it's going to die out.
Overheating.
So no, no battery. I have it connected to a source, but it's going to turn off here in a second. So with that, I think, unless you have anything else,
I got one more quick thing. Put
there
out
we go.
a yeah. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Put out a quick thing on Shorts the other day about the VA login. So getting into the VA site to get to your benefits and all that stuff, the healthcare and all that. They do have a way to log in with a username and password. That will be going away January 31st, 2025. So you've basically got about 60, 70 days left before that login and password will go away. I'm assuming that they're actually going to cut it off. They may say it and then push it out a little bit further, depending. But we've talked about it before, and I just want to kind of refresh people's memory. If you don't have a login .gov or a ID.me account, what you should do is just go and create one of these accounts. Either one, doesn't matter which one, don't care which one you choose. But I personally use ID.me because I've used it before for other things in the world, not just military stuff, but also some commercial stuff that I was working on, some programming and coding and stuff that I was working on for that. So yeah, you just sign up, you do the verification online, and this is exactly how I log into my VA stuff on my phone with the VA app. I pull up the VA app. If I have to log in, recently it's been letting me stay logged in, not logged in, but it lets me use my face verification to get it back into the VA app rather than having to open up the ID.me and then authenticate and then let it come back up and then pull in the VA stuff. And for me, I just used my Google account to get into the ID.me. So it's all basically tied back to my super, super secret Google password thing. that allows me to log in pretty easily and painlessly. So yeah, if you are using a username and password to get into the VA sites, what you want to do is make sure you set up an ID.me or a um, login.gov account, either one, and then use that to log into your VA stuff. This just makes things a lot more secure and better for you when you're logging into VA sites. It makes the whole system more secure and less threat of being hacked and getting your personal information hacked by bad actors that are out in the world. So the VA is doing their part, and I'm sure now that we have a new secretary coming in on board, he'll probably be pushing hard to make some of these things a little bit better along the way. But this is one thing that you need to kind of keep track of if you don't already have this. Super easy to set up. Just go set it up and then use that to log in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's good. Good information. I'll have to update my stuff.
Mhm.
And
I
real
think we
quick
actually did a
before,
walkthrough on that, right? We did a walkthrough
yeah,
maybe a few months ago.
yeah, we did. And I'll bring this one up to the stage myself. Just a
Mhm.
reminder, if you are if you have TRICARE, they have open season right now. And if you are a federal employee, benefits has open season right now, and open season ends, as they say here, December 9th, 2024. So if you you can always change it after that if you have like a major life event, like you get a job or something like that, or something happens. I'm not exactly sure what the criteria is, but just know that open season is open right now for benefits, for Fed VIP, and TRICARE as well. I think TRICARE ends December 10th, but
Mhm.
it is open right now.
Got less than a month.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I already jumped on mine. So do your part and jump on yours too.
Yep. Don't fall behind on those things. They seem kind of insignificant now, but when they do change over and you try to get access to your things such as healthcare, or you're trying to get access to the VA, or you're trying to get access to your benefits account information, and get things updated or get your healthcare updated, those things are kind of important.
Oh yeah,
When
yeah,
you miss the deadline, then you got to wait.
yeah. You do, and it's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yep.
It happens. So
All
aside
right.
from that, I mean, you can see all everybody's still with us. You can see all the links above my head here. Military Retirement Podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. As you're watching right now, we have the Green Logbook, my own personal journal for life after the military. You can find that on YouTube. And we have our book, The Bottom Line Up Front, What You Need to Know Before You Leave the Military. You can find that on Amazon right now. It's probably the lowest cost book on Amazon right now, but we did that for a reason because we want to spread the good word to everybody out there who's transitioning from military to civilian to make sure that everybody has a successful transition and become successful in their civilian life. And on top of that, I think, what other links do we have, John? You got anything else?
No, that's it. If you want to find us, you can find us. If you're really looking and hunting and trying to share this out with somebody and you don't have a good way to share it, just send them to military.retirementpodcast.com.
Mhm.
And from there, you can get all the links to everything. There'll be a bunch of the videos linked in there as well. So you can just go in there and find what's going on. Haven't updated that in a while, and it's been just busy. I got a few things to edit and a few things to push out, but generally speaking, military.retirementpodcast.com is where you can find everything, all the information that you need to know about. YouTube is our main channel. That's where we do everything, and everything else is secondary, Spotify and Apple and all that. We do push out stuff to that, but the latest and greatest information is going to be right here on YouTube, where you hopefully are seeing this right now. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. All right. With that, thank you for listening. I got nothing further here on my side.
All good on my side, man. Appreciate you.
All right. You too. Out here.
All right, out here.